I'm bored. Let's read a book. Oh! I thought about woodworking, but decided against arguing my case. She would have found something else to throw against men. Instead, I struggled with the chili and listened. Their soldiers are younger each season, so are ours. We're all bleeding to death. Pass the bread. We'll stop in Maltosia. Even from there, it's a good day's ride. Barbara stopped talking and kept exchanging glances with the girl Curla. I ignored both, trying to pick up on what Shervin and the other two soldiers were discussing, but there were too many interruptions, so I ate slowly and carefully, wondering exactly how bad my stomach and guts would torture me in the days ahead. The midday meal ended as suddenly as it began. "Enough," announced Barbara. "You all would sit here all afternoon if you could. The wizard must go to Kyphrian, and Saltos and Guerra," she pointed at the two other soldiers, "must take the watch station from my Nicholas and Carmen." "So soon?" pleaded the youngster. "So late? Hush! Clear off the table, out to the kitchen." I retreated to the stable with Shervin. "Your sister?" "How'd you guess?" A look and the mention of her Nicholas. Shervin began to saddle Pablo. I rummaged around and found what looked to be a short stack of grain cakes. "If I could purchase some of these." No, they're yours. We have fresh grain and grasses." "I can't just take them." Shervin shrugged. "Then someday, sometime, make us a gift. Make it for Barbara." I thought I understood. "I will. Another obligation. But what other choice was there? Gerlach needed travel food as much as I did. Maybe more in the dry Kyphron climate." Clinkety-clink. "Pendrell's here." The other trooper was heavier than Shervin, older, with flowing black mustache. "Come on, Shervin. You want to get to Maltosia before Parlin's horses? He's riding that pony?" "Oh, well, wizards will be wizards." Pendrell shook his head. Shervin winked at me. I didn't shrug, but I felt like it. Instead, I flicked the reins and Gerlach carried me out into the full afternoon sun. The road out from Tellura and toward Kyphron was the same as the road that had led me into the little crossroads, down, hot, dusty, and up one rolling hill and down the next. Shervin rode his Palomeno Pablo, and the other trooper, Pedril, who had not been at the noon meal, rode a black and white spotted gelding. Both horses reminded me exactly how small Gerlach was. "He moves quick for a pony," said Pendrell. "And the wizard rides well for a wizard, too." "Are you sure he's a wizard?" "Am I sure? Let me tell you. In the first 5 k's we traveled, Shervin must have told how I disarmed him and how I made a grain cake appear from thin air in at least 3 different ways. By then the sun had touched the clouds in the west, and the unseasonable heat had begun to dissipate. I wiped my forehead and began to enjoy the ride, noting that the hills were flatter, not quite so barren, and that some fields held goats, but only in the fence fields. Ah yes, the Autarch. Any unfenced goat is considered a game animal that anyone may kill or capture unless it is branded. But if it is branded, the owner must pay 2 coppers to ransom it back. I frowned, but I didn't need to. Shervin kept explaining. "The goat, you see, it will eat anything, and if it eats everything, then the desert will come. We need the goats, but we need the trees, especially the olives and the lemons and the oranges." He shrugged. "We also have a lot of good goat dinners. I haven't even seen any buffalo. Kyphros is too hot for them, except under the Westthorns," explained Pendrell. His voice was lower and slower than Shervin's. "Few of us would live near the Wizard Mountains. especially now. The Wizard Mountains? That is where the clouds that bring lightning and fire come from, where the white wizards live, and where too many people have disappeared. To go to Saarinen, it is better to go south first, to use the southern passes, or to go north of even Gallus. Going north is not possible anymore either. My father said that Saarinen was bright, with grassy hillsides, not as cold as Gallus and not as hot as Kyphros, and the women were always friendly, and they liked strangers, that's what he said. Shervin looked ahead at the dusty and hilly road, then continued without a break. My father, he used to drive a road wagon for Worcester, but that was when the middle road was open to all, and it took only 4 days to Saarinen. Not an 8-day and more like now. That road wagon, it took 4 horses to pull it, and it glistened like red gold. I remember when he put me up on the seat and let me hold the reins. Shervin looked behind us. No one was there. I had already checked. Although we had overtaken a small wagon loaded with covered baskets and had passed a post rider headed back in the direction of Tellura, the road was lightly used. I see no one. Do you think we will see one of the finest? Asked Shervin. Here, so far from the hills? But the wizards should see some of the finest. Suspecting I had seen a few of the finest as captives in Fenard, I let the two talk as the horses carried us down the road and further into Kyphros. Maltosia was nearly a repeat of Tellura, except that instead of just 5 or 6 buildings, it had nearly a dozen, one of which was a long house that took in travelers. Mama Parlan's house could not have been called an inn, not even in comparison to the snug inn in Howlett. But the rooms were cool and the pallets on the hard wooden bed frames clean. The evening meal was another spicy casserole. Goat, I gathered, but I didn't ask. Breakfast was hard rolls, not much after dawn, and Shervin woke as talkative as if he went to sleep. A wonderful morning to be alive. Look at the pink above the hills and the dew like pearls upon the yucca. A good day for a long ride. And it will be a long ride to Kyphrian, but a sunny one. Don't you think so, Pendril? Pendril earned my gratitude by grunting. The midday meal was in a barracks of road soldiers, in a place whose name I never learned, distinguished mainly by the fact that a small post controlled the bridge over the first river I had seen in Kyphros, a snaking tongue of water no more than 15 cubits wide and less than a cubit deep. But when the spring floods come, then the waters sweep everything before them, and the land is under water for K upon K. I hadn't asked, but Shervin answered the questions I might have posed, and all too many even I would have considered. That was how we reached Kyphros. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, please like, comment, and subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss out on any of my videos. See y'all in the next one. Goodbye!